Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a special one for all the Leica lovers, everyone who loves shooting on that vintage Leica glass for video. This one's for you guys. Today we are looking at the difference between two of the most sought after Leica lenses, the 19mm Leica R. We're looking at both version 1 and version 2, comparing those two against each other, and we're going to take a look at how they compare and how they might be different. My name is Kevin Reyes, and this is the Study of Glass. Now I know this is a little bit of a niche video, but I know everyone who's into Leicas and trying to build out their sets are faced with this one decision between version 1 and version 2 of this lens. One of them is a little bit less expensive at around $3,500, give or take, and the other one, version 2, is at around $4,500. So is the extra money worth getting the version 2? These are very different lenses. We're going to be looking at them side by side, analyzing all the different nuances between the two and really picking them apart. We're going to start out by looking at their physical builds. How do these differ in terms of the way they were built? We'll then look at a montage of side by side clips that I took with both of these lenses, both shot on the full frame new V-Raptor Vista vision to take a look at coverage. And we'll also shoot on the Komodo, both exterior daytime and nighttime, to really see all the different characteristics of these lenses. And if you want to skip ahead, I left chapter markers for you. And if you haven't already watched it, I did an overview on my entire Leica R set. I'll leave a link at the end of this video so you can watch that after you're done here. If you like this kind of content, please consider liking, subscribing, and hit the bell notification so that you can be notified when I post the next video. All right guys, let's check it out. So let's start with their physical builds. So the version 1 lens I have is from 1982 and the second one is from 1990. Now one of the interesting things is version 1's focus throw is significantly longer, like a traditional cinema lens, and the rest of the Leica set at 200 degrees, while version 2 is at 110 degrees, a lot shorter. So plus or minus, depends on if you like longer focus throws or shorter ones. Also on version 2, you'll notice a filter turret that allows you to go from ND to orange to yellow, green to blue. I'm sure you can get creative and get some interesting looks with the other filters. Okay, now let's jump into the way these images look. The way we're going to do that is we're going to first look at each lens full frame, then we're going to look at them top and bottom, then we're going to look at them side by side. This will really help us analyze the differences between these two lenses. So let's start with studio. This is on the red V-Raptor 8K using the full sensor. First thing I'm noticing is just how different both of these flares are. Version 1 has a bluish purplish ring, the smaller primary ring, while version 2 has two strong, warm, reddish orange rings around them. Both look really cool in my opinion. I'm also noticing a little bit of distortion on version 1, a little bit more than version 2. You can see as I pan across and my face kind of becomes stretched out towards the edge of the frame on version 1. Version 2 is still distorted, but not as bad. These are just some simple portraits to get an idea of the composition of the full frame on both of these cameras.
Perhaps I was talking when I should have been listening.
And both of them are pretty similar. I'd say at this angle, version 1 is controlling the flares just a tad bit better than version 2. And I'm also noticing that both of them show slight vignette on the corners. For the daytime exteriors, I switched over to the Komodo using its full frame at 6K, and so I used all natural light, took a bunch of shots around town, so let's dive in and check these out and see how they compare. This first shot was backlit. I actually tried to backlight a lot of these shots with the sun because it usually uncovers a lot of the imperfections, or should I say characteristics, of these lenses. And the biggest call out on this shot is just the amount of chromatic aberration you see in version 1. For now, chromatic aberration I'm going to refer to as CA, and we're seeing a ton of it in this shot right here in version 1. And if you don't know what chromatic aberration is, it's basically when you're looking at a very high contrast scene like this one, and you're basically looking at the transition from dark to light. And if we're looking at these poles, you'll see as I zoom in 300% just how much more purple fringe you see on version 1 versus version 2. Now here's a side-by-side of version 1 at 2.8 and version 1 at f4. Stopping down does clean up the CA quite a bit. Now this shot really shows how version 1 maintains a little more contrast over version 2, especially in the shadows. Version 1 has a lot of chromatic aberration. I'm also noticing a cooler tone in version 2, especially in the skies. Here's this dude absolutely ripping on guitar. This guy just sat there and shred for an hour non-stop. Not a huge difference here, maybe a touch more contrast in version 1. We're seeing how both of these lenses just flare so beautifully. Now it does appear that in version 2 it's warmer, but I do think that's caused by the reddish wash flare by version 2 that it produces. In a little bit we'll see how these lenses compare as far as colors go without the flare contamination. Again, I love how these lenses flare. Man, it's just so pretty. Version 1 flares have a lot of bluish purple artifacts, while version 2 maintains the warmer hues in the flare. Version 1 flares kind of wash the entire image with a cooler tone, while version 2, the flares kind of wash a warm tone over all the image. This next shot looks fairly similar, but when we get to the ocean you start to see a little bit more cooler tones from version 2. I'm seeing the sky and water has a cooler tone in version 2. And same with this shot, colors look cooler in version 2. And it's the same again with this shot, where you really notice the color differences between these two lenses. Just look at the sky and the colors in both of them. I'm also grading both of these clips the exact same using the red Rec 709 conversion LUT. And this one again, you can kind of see the differences in color again. Contrast is looking fairly similar here. Alright, here's my Clarence Malick moment. Would have looked a lot cooler on full frame, but whatever. But here I'm looking at the bokeh and just how it behaves around the frame. Here I'm seeing more of a wrapping effect around the edges on version 1, while version 2 kind of maintains more of that consistent circular bokeh shape throughout the entire frame. And this is another shot that the flares from each camera just really give you a mood. They really kind of pronounce themselves and take over the entire frame. Alright, let's switch over to the nighttime scenes. This is going to allow us to really see how light hits these lenses and how the lenses respond to stronger sources. I really like this shot above the freeway, but in version 1 we see a lot of CA around the headlights of the oncoming cars. Honestly, I wish I never learned about what chromatic aberration was, because I never noticed it before, but now I can't unsee it. I even see it in like movies and commercials. I always notice chromatic aberration, but if I never learned what it was, I probably would never see it. So I'm sorry if that ruins it for you. And just a huge improvement in version 2 as far as CA goes. They really cleaned it up. In this shot, I'm loving how version 1 is flaring. Kind of that expanding orb near the lamp. I love that. And here's another example of how CA can really mess with your shot. In this side-by-side, check out how it really messes with the colors of the sign. Now we're looking at some more bokeh between these two. In this shot, you can really see the differences in the bokeh. Notice how version 1 loses its circular shape around the edges and creates that kind of wrapping effect around the edges. A lot of vintage lenses kind of carry that same characteristic. Now I shot this to see if one lens has more halation than the other, but they both look very similar as far as that goes. And again, I am seeing a little CA on the edges of the lamp in version 1. This shot gives us a really good look at how each lens flare. And both, again, have amazing flares. I love them. I gotta say, I don't hate the strong red circle in V2. And And the last thing I noticed about version 2 that was really weird is how the flares react when you're adjusting focus. Watch as the light rays from the lamp rotate along with the focus. It's so weird. Not sure if I like that. Now, I didn't shoot a bunch of charts. I tend to think that's boring, but I did shoot some of the more important ones that show some really good differences for us to see. So let's check that out. First off is color, and off the bat, you don't even have to look at a vector scope to just see how much cooler version 2 is. At first I thought version 1 was warmer, but it's actually version 2 that's way off as far as color goes. Way cooler than I anticipated. And just to compare a modern neutral lens, here's the Canon 24-105. And version 1 definitely has more of a neutral color to it. Alright, sharpness. Here's the sharpness at center frame on both lenses at f2.8. Version 1 is a little bit softer. And here's sharpness at the corners of the frame at 2.8. Version 1 becomes very soft while version 2 maintains sharpness moderately. So as you can see, both of these lenses are very different both in build and the image that they produce. But the reason a lot of people buy these lenses is because of those imperfections. Some people want that softness that you see out of version 1, or some people want the less contrast that you get in version 2. Some people even want those artifacts, those flaring artifacts that are just really funky compared to modern lenses. That's kind of the reason why people get them. So for me, it's kind of a toss-up. I don't love the chromatic aberration you get in version 1, but I do love its softness, and I do like some things about version 2 as well. Like it still maintains that vintage character, but it has just more of a cleaner, sharper, more controlled kind of look to it, but it does have those funky red flares. But I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on these lenses. What did you like? What did you not like about each lens? Which one would you choose, and why would you choose it? Let me know down in the comments, and stay tuned because I'm also going to be comparing vintage lenses to modern lenses on each focal length. All right, I love you guys. Take care. Peace out.